So according to the precious metals rigger-in-chief and dead man walking, Deutsche Bank unveils the next step. Quantitative easing has run its course. It's time to tax wealth. According to Zero Hedge, a helicopter of money may be on the horizon, but if Deutsche Bank has its way, there is at least one intermediate step. According to Deutsche Bank's Dominique Konstam, now that the benefits of QE have run their course, it is time for the next and far more drastic step. The European Central Bank and Bank of Japan should move more strongly toward penalizing savings. And all you retirees and retirement benefits out there are going to get screwed over that. So towards penalizing savings via negative rate retail deposit rates, or perhaps wealth taxes. This will stick what this. Let's try that one more time. With this stick would also come a carrot. For example, negative mortgage rates. No, I said, hold on a second. Negative mortgage rates? Could you imagine, contact your bank, hey, I've got a house I'm interested in and need to get a mortgage. And the bank's going to actually essentially pay you. If rates go negative, you're getting paid. What the hell? How does this even work? I got a $200,000 mortgage today. Yeah. Wow, what'd you get? A good rate? Yeah, real good rate, actually. What rate did you get? 2%? 3%? No, negative 1%. Negative 1%? How the hell does that work? I make my mortgage payment, and the bank pays 1% towards the principal because there is no interest. So I make my payment, and I'm essentially paying all principal. I have no interest to pay, and the bank, dumping 1% on it, helps pay me off. The mortgage. Okay, so how the hell does the bank make money? And we're not talking about small little loans, $7, $8, $9, $10, $20,000 loan. $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 loans. Times each person that has one of these mortgages. And the bank's going to essentially give them. I wonder what planet some of these people are on. Here's the big picture unveiling of what is coming next from Deutsche Bank's Dominique Konstam, who is also buying the Treasury long end first, hand over fist. The G3 central banks all stood pat, continuing the move away from the beggar thy neighbor paradigm. However, the adverse market reaction to the Bank of Japan's inaction suggests that the benefits of quantitative easing, or QQE, in its present form, might have run their course. It's becoming increasingly clear to us that the level of yields at which credit expansion in Europe and Japan will pick up in earnest is probably negative, and substantially so. Therefore, the ECB and the Bank of Japan should move more strongly toward penalizing savings via negative retail deposit rates or perhaps wealth taxes. With this stick would also come a carrot, for example, negative mortgage rates, as I said a minute ago. Until then, bank NIM compression will continue to drive elevated demand for dollar-denominated assets, which manifests itself in suppressed U.S. Treasury term premia and wide cross-currency bases. What this means for the U.S. is that policy rates and longer bond yields are unlikely to go up until global growth accelerates materially. Until such time, it is critical for the Fed to continue to relent, allowing real yields to keep falling while break-evens rise and nominal yields remain roughly static. If the Fed were to turn hawkish, there is perhaps even less scope for long end yields to rise, as break-evens would likely collapse on policy error fears. And some of the troubling detail is as follows. Quantitative easing, as implemented in major economies since the crisis, has operated through two shocks. A demand shock whereby real yields are forced lower through lower nominal yields and static or even falling break-evens. And a shock to inflation expectations whereby real yields ultimately continue to fall, but due to rising BEI and static, to lower nominal yields. In the case of the Anglo-Saxon economies, the demand shock quickly gave way to the shock higher to inflation expectations and actually allowed nominal yields to rise, if fleetingly. The second shock to inflation expectations has thus far remained stubbornly elusive in Europe and more so in Japan, and ephemeral in the Anglo-Saxon economies. That said, the dynamic appears to have reemerged in the U.S. post-Fed relent and has been an important driver of the recovery in risk assets and, more generally, the easing of financial conditions. This week's Bank of Japan's announcement disappointed, and as a result, the yen appreciated sharply. This outcome does not bode well for the future efficacy of quantitative easing, at least while that is the primary policy tool in use. Break-evens have been drifting lower, and real yields have been drifting higher since last summer. In other words, financial conditions in Japan are tightening, suggesting the need for more stimulus. However, the Bank of Japan already holds a significant proportion of the assets that would be available for purchase, and the gains from additional quantitative easing activity, higher break-evens, lower real yields, and a weaker yen are likely on the margin to be fleeting. It appears that the markets doubt the Bank of Japan's willingness or ability to carry on with larger and broader asset purchases, or worse yet, they do not believe that such asset purchases will have their desired stimulative effect. Further QE should be viewed as an experiment in real time, where the point of inquiry is the level of real or nominal yields at which credit will begin to expand more strongly with loan-to-deposit ratios increasing. What seems increasingly clear to us is that this level is likely at negative yields, and probably substantially so. If this is true, it would suggest to us that the equilibrium level of rates in the economy is probably negative. This in turn would strongly suggest a significant rethink to short rate policy. In this case, central banks should move more strongly toward penalizing savings rather than just the institutions that house those savings, the banks. This would mean allowing significantly negative retail deposit rates, or perhaps even wealth taxes. With this stick would also come a carrot. One example being that while deposit rates penalize savings, the whole point, banks might also pay borrowers to buy houses via negative mortgage rates. And in short, the recent central bank panic is about to be unleashed. And who will suffer? Well, everyone else. And should wealth taxes really be imminent, we foresee a lot of boating accidents, wink wink, in the near future. I can't see personally them go with some, simply put, negative mortgage rates. I mean, because here's how that would end again. Housing crash 2.0 is literally right. We're knocking on the door. It's that close. If they go negative, then that means housing prices can actually rise, because that means you can afford that same monthly payment you can afford now, but that's at 3 or 4 or 5% mortgage rate interest. So if you can, let's just say, afford a $200,000 house currently at 4% interest, what would -1 interest allow me? Well, hell, I could afford a $275,000, maybe a $300,000 house. So what's going to happen? Housing prices would actually start to go up because you can afford more. Not necessarily that there's newer houses are coming out and they're great. Nope. The simple fact that at that equilibrium of what can you afford every month pushes the housing prices up. Interest rates rise, housing prices come down. Interest rates low, housing prices go up. Well, we already had the crash, and then we've had near zero interest rate this whole time, since 2008, 9, whatever. And we had the housing market crash again, so prices came down. They started to rebound a little bit, but they never went back up where they were. But they're still in bubble territory. The charts that I see still show housing in bubble territory. So if these houses are in bubble territory, the price of these houses, that means they got to come down. But we're already at 0% interest. And again, that equates, to those of us in houses. Some of us have 3.5%, 4.5%, not whatever, wherever you may be, whatever your credit score may be. But if they go negative, negative rates, it wouldn't even make sense that the bank is now going to pay you to borrow money from them. It just, I realize this is from Deutsche Bank, but I mean, for God's sakes, I don't see this happening at all. I don't even know why someone at Deutsche Bank would say such a thing. I feel this is utter nonsense, to be honest with you, that they would actually do that. Not to say that one of these countries over there may decide, oh, let's do it, let's see what happens. And then everyone else says, oh, yeah, that didn't work out real well. But to become like the next thing that all nations do, worldwide, well, we all did QE and we all did, bailouts and everything else. Well, okay, now it's time, let's all go negative on, including mortgages. Let's just pay people to borrow money from us. It wouldn't make sense. The bank's not making money. It's giving you money, essentially. It's actually giving you money to pay your mortgage. Makes absolutely no sense. To me, I feel this reeks of utter nonsense. But we're definitely expecting a housing crash 2.0. This problem we've faced all these years, last several years from 2008, they haven't gone away at all. Nothing's been resolved. The banks are bigger than they were before. They have more supposed assets than they did before. And they also have more liabilities, derivatives, than they did before. Now they swap them around, and Deutsche Bank sells off, and JP Morgan's got them now, and Citigroup, now we're going to pump them off to this one. They just bounce them around. But these things don't just disappear, right? Derivative, this thing doesn't, this is pH, test my pH level, water. It doesn't disappear. I set it over here, it's there. Now JP Morgan may pick it up and hand it over here to Citigroup, and then Citigroup, Bank of America, you've got it now. But these derivatives are still out there. They don't just go away. Somebody owns these turds. And they're massive, as you know, in the tens of trillions of dollars. So, again, this has to be dealt with. You can try negative rates and QE for the people. As, Helicopter Ben said the other day, Ben Bernanke, QE for the people might actually work. If we had to get to that situation, it might actually work. But the same things you said when you were head of the Federal Reserve, and you had this chart they showed, we're just going to go up at the Federal Reserve, but then here's where we see it 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, right around 16, it goes back flat where we are now. That's our plan. And then they looked at the chart. I saw this last year, actually, or maybe it was earlier this year, sometime recently, we'll say. And then so that chart showing this, and then back down like they forecasted, it went up, and then went up some more and stayed up. And now I remember, but sales problem, I'm out. I'm no longer in charge. So, Janet Yellen, you took over. Again, these people are in power, in charge, in these positions, the ones who are there today, because they've been selected. Guys, or in this case, gals, Yellen, we didn't want to give you the memo because we know it'd freak you out. We saw the little baby memo we gave you the other day when you had a heart attack on stage. Nervous breakdown, whatever it was. But we have to let you know now, you're going to be in charge when the ship sinks. So, yeah, take care.